3 years after the day Noah Porter officially became the legal adopted son of Brian and Margaret, an unexpected letter from the past surfaced. And it would challenge everything they believed they understood about forgiveness, about family, and about how to face the choices that had left scars on their lives. Because sometimes, a story does not end the moment a child finds a new home. Sometimes, it is only the beginning of another journey, the journey of those who walked away, and must now learn to live with the very act of letting go. This is the story of Harold Jennings, the man who lost everything because of one desperate decision. And this is also the story of Brian Porter, the man who thought he had stopped loving until he relearned how to hold on to a small, fragile hand. Before we step into this new chapter of the story, tell me in the comments, do you believe that a father can truly redeem himself after abandoning his own child? If you want to continue following emotional stories like this, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what comes next, because what the letter reveals will change everything. Harold Jennings sat in the small room at Riverside Recovery Center on the outskirts of Philadelphia. Through the window, heavy snow was falling, blanketing the lawn outside in white. It had been 36 months since the day he abandoned Noah at 30th Street Station. 36 months, and not a single day passed without him thinking about the boy. Harold's room was sparse: a single bed, a small wooden table, a chair. There were no pictures on the walls. He had removed every photo of Noah and Eliza after his second suicide attempt. Looking at those faces was too painful. There was a gentle knock on the door. "Harold?" Dr. Patricia Morgan's voice came through. "It's time for your therapy session." Harold stood up slowly, his body heavy like lead. Every step toward the therapy room felt like walking on shards of glass. Every session, he had to face what he had done. Every session, he had to speak aloud the truths he wanted to bury. Dr. Morgan was a woman in her early 50s, with silver hair and eyes that saw right through pretense. She had worked with Harold since his very first day, after a roommate found him unconscious from an overdose of sleeping pills. "Sit down, Harold," she said gently, pointing to the familiar sofa. Harold sat, hands clasped together, eyes fixed on the floor. "What day is it today?" Dr. Morgan asked, one of her usual questions. "November 17th, Harold answered, his voice raspy. "And? And 3 years ago, on this exact day, I left my son at the station." His voice broke. "Exactly 3 years." Dr. Morgan nodded. "How does that make you feel?" "How do I feel?" Harold let out a short, bitter laugh. A laugh with no joy. "I feel like a monster, like a man who doesn't deserve to breathe air, like—" He stopped, tears spilling down. "I ask myself every day, is he okay? Where is he living? Does someone love him? Or is he still waiting for me to come back?" "And what if I told you we could find out?" Dr. Morgan asked. "What if I said you could reach out to Noah's adoptive family?" Harold looked up, eyes wide. I can't. I gave up that right." "You gave up your legal rights," Dr. Morgan corrected, "but no one can take away the fact that you are his father. DNA doesn't change, Harold. The question is, what do you want to do with that truth?" Harold shook his head violently. "I don't deserve it. I abandoned him. You made a decision out of desperation," Dr. Morgan said firmly. "A terrible decision. Yes. But a decision you believed, right or wrong, was the best for your child. Now the question isn't whether you deserve anything. It's whether you have the courage to face what you've done and try to repair it." "How can I possibly repair abandoning a child?" Harold whispered. "By living a life so that if Noah ever searches for you one day, he will find a man who has changed, a man who learned to face pain instead of running from it. Dr. Morgan leaned forward. Harold, you've been sober for 36 months. You've fought through suicidal thoughts. You are here, doing the hard work. That is a beginning. But it's not enough, Harold said. It will never be enough. Maybe not, Dr. Morgan agreed. But it's all you can do. Keep trying, a little each day. And maybe one day, it will be enough for you to look in the mirror without hating the man staring back. March brought the first warm days after the long winter. Harold began attending group therapy sessions at the center, sitting in a circle with other men and women, each carrying their own guilt and their own pain. The first time Harold shared his story with the group was on a rainy afternoon. "My name is Harold," he began, his voice trembling, "and I abandoned my 3-year-old son at a train station." Silence filled the room. Not judgment, but understanding. Because here, in this circle, everyone carried their own sins. "Why?" a woman named Janet asked softly. She had abandoned her 2 children while chasing drugs. "Because I thought he'd be better off without me," Harold said. "My wife died giving birth to him. I had to choose, save my wife or save my son. I chose my son. And after that, every time I looked at his face, I only saw the woman I'd lost." He wiped his tears. "I had no money, no job. He needed surgery for his leg. And I couldn't face failing every day. So I ran." Marcus, an older man who had abandoned his family because of alcohol, spoke up. "And what do you think now?" "I think I'm a coward," Harold said. "I think I stole from my son the one thing he had a right to, a father, even a bad one." "But did you love him?" Janet asked. "With all my heart," Harold whispered. "That's the worst part. I loved him so much I thought he deserved a life better than the one I could give." Dr. Morgan, who facilitated the group, said, "Love distorted by guilt and grief can lead us to terrible choices. But the important thing is, it is still love. And love can be healed." In June, Harold began participating in the vocational training program at the center. There was a small woodworking shop where those in recovery could learn skills. Harold had once been a skilled carpenter before everything collapsed. When he picked up a hammer for the first time in 3 years, his hand trembled. But then, muscle memory returned. The familiar motions came back. He started with simple things, picture frames, small boxes. Gradually, the projects became more complex. Thomas Brennan, the veteran carpenter who supervised the workshop, watched Harold work one day. "You've got good hands," he said. "A shame to waste that." "I've wasted many things," Harold replied, sawing without stopping. "Then don't waste this," Thomas said. "Skill is one of the few things that doesn't leave you, even when everything else has." And Thomas was right. When Harold worked with wood, his mind felt quiet. The sound of the saw, the smell of sawdust, the smooth grain under his fingers, they gave him something he hadn't had in years: purpose. One afternoon, while Harold was making a small table, Dr. Morgan stepped into the workshop. "It's beautiful," she said, touching the polished surface. "Thank you," Harold said. "Who are you making it for?" Harold paused. I don't know." "Maybe you're making it for Noah," Dr. Morgan suggested. "One day, when you're ready, you could give him something made by your hands. Something that says, 'Even when you couldn't be there, you still thought of him.'" Harold felt his throat tighten. "He wouldn't want anything from me." "Maybe not now," Dr. Morgan said. "But one day? Who knows? People can change, Harold, and forgiveness can come from places we don't expect." In October, Dr. Morgan gave Harold an assignment. "I want you to write a letter," she said during their session, "to Noah. You don't have to send it, but I want you to write what you wish you could tell him." "I don't know where to start," Harold admitted. "Start with the truth," Dr. Morgan said simply. Harold spent 3 weeks writing that letter. Every night, he sat at the desk in his room with a blank sheet of paper and a pen. Sometimes he wrote a whole page, sometimes only one sentence before tearing it up and starting again. Finally, on a bitterly cold November night, he finished it. "My dear Noah, you will never read this letter. I know that, but I need to write it. Every night before I sleep, I wonder what you are doing. Are you sleeping soundly? Do you dream beautiful dreams? Is someone reading you a bedtime story? I hope you are happy. I hope you have a family who loves you in the way I could not. I hope you do not remember me, because remembering me means remembering pain. But if you do remember, please know this. I did not leave you because I did not love you. I left you because I loved you too much and did not know how to love you the right way. Your mother, Eliza, would hate me for what I did. She would never forgive me, and I do not deserve forgiveness. But you, Noah, you deserve every good thing in this world, and I hope you are getting it. I will always love you. Harold Jennings, the man who once was your father. Harold folded the letter, placed it in an envelope, and tucked it into a drawer. He never sent it, but writing it released something inside him. A little pain, a little guilt. Not enough to heal, but enough to keep going. While Harold wrestled with his past inside the recovery center, Noah was growing and flourishing in the arms of Brian and Margaret. The boy was now 6 years old, taller, more confident. The leg brace was still there, but thanks to physical therapy, Noah's steps had become much steadier. And his math ability? It continued to astonish anyone who met him. Every morning, Brian drove Noah to Jefferson Academy, a private school for gifted children. There, Noah studied math at a level far beyond his age group. But Noah wasn't just smart. He had a big heart. One afternoon, when Brian arrived to pick Noah up, his teacher, Ms. Ellen Rodriguez, walked over to him. "Mr. Porter, I want to tell you something," she said with a warm smile. "We had a new student today, a boy named Michael. Shy, scared, wouldn't talk to anyone. And Noah. Noah sat with him during lunch, shared his food, and said, 'I know what it feels like to be new. Everyone here is really nice. You'll like it soon.'" A wave of warm pride rose in Brian's chest. "He remembers," he said softly. "Remembers what?" the teacher asked. "That feeling of being new, of being different, of being someone who needed to be welcomed." That evening, on the drive home, Brian asked gently, "You helped a new friend today?" Noah nodded. "Yes, Michael. He was really scared, Dad. Like I used to be." "You're not scared anymore?" Noah thought for a moment, then answered with innocent honesty, "I'm still scared sometimes, but I know you and Mom will be there, so I'm okay." Brian had to swallow hard. Little moments like that made every hardship of fatherhood more worthwhile than he could ever explain. But as Noah grew older, the questions began to appear. One May evening, as Brian was reading Noah a bedtime story, the boy suddenly asked, "Dad, why don't I look like you and Mom?" Brian froze. "What do you mean?" "Jamie says he looks like his dad. Sophia says she has her mom's eyes. But I don't look like you or Mom." Brian set the book down, choosing his words carefully. "Remember how I told you that you were adopted?" "Yes." "That means you weren't born from me and Mom. But you're our son in another way. Through love, through choice. Noah nodded, thinking deeply. So, I have other parents? The ones who made me? Yes, Brian answered softly. You had a mother named Eliza. She passed away when she gave birth to you. And you have a father named Harold. Where is Harold now? I don't know for sure, Brian said, half the truth. He knew where Harold was, but he wasn't sure if he should tell Noah. He couldn't take care of you anymore, so he asked me to take care of you for him. Did he love me? Brian looked into Noah's clear blue eyes, the eyes identical to Harold's, though he had never said that aloud. Yes, he said firmly. I believe he loved you in his own way. But sometimes, love isn't enough. Sometimes people need more than that. Noah whispered, What about you? Are you enough? Brian pulled Noah into his arms, his voice trembling. I will try my best to be enough, every day of my life. Noah wrapped his small but steady arms around him. You're already enough. Those words, from a 6-year-old, carried a power to heal that no doctor, no therapist, no amount of money could ever buy. On a summer afternoon in July, Brian received a strange envelope. No return address. Only one name, Harold Jennings. Brian sat in his library, holding the envelope in his hand. His heart pounded so hard, he could hear it in his chest. Margaret had taken Noah out shopping. In the spacious room, he was alone. Alone with an unnamed worry. He opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a sheet of paper, the handwriting uneven, the ink smudged in places as if the writer had cried while writing it. Brian read the letter once. Then he read it again. Every word felt like it carried a stone of remorse. Harold did not ask to meet Noah. He did not ask for forgiveness. He asked only one thing. Is my son okay? Brian leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes. One part of his mind spoke first. Don't answer. This man abandoned your son. He doesn't deserve to know anything. But another part, the part of him that was a father, said the opposite. That Harold was hurting. That even though he had done the worst thing, he was still Noah's biological father. And, maybe, he deserved to know that his child was safe and happy. Brian opened a drawer, took out paper and pen. He wrote, Mr. Jennings, I received your letter, and it took me quite a while to decide whether I should respond. Noah is well. More than well. He is thriving. He attends a good school, has friends, and is discovering his remarkable talent for mathematics. He is happy. He doesn't remember you much. I don't know whether that's good or bad. But I have kept my promise to you. If he asks about you, I tell him the truth. That you loved him, but could not take care of him. I don't know whether you deserve forgiveness. That isn't my decision. One day, Noah will grow up and choose his own answer. But I want you to know this. I do not hate you. You made a terrible decision at a terrible moment. I cannot fully understand your reasons, but I try to believe that you did what you thought was right. Take care of yourself. Learn to live with what you have done. And know that your son is loved. Brian Porter. Brian folded the letter, placed it into an envelope, and sent it to Riverside Recovery Center. That night, after Noah had fallen asleep, Brian told Margaret, What do you think would happen if Harold wanted to write to Noah? He asked, uncertainty lacing his voice. Margaret thought for a long moment, then gently asked, What exactly are you afraid of? Brian exhaled heavily. I'm afraid it will confuse Noah. Or, worse, make him think we're not enough. Margaret took her husband's hand and squeezed it softly. Noah knows he is loved, she said tenderly. But he also has the right to know about his past. Not now. He's too young. But one day, when he's ready. Brian looked at his wife, his voice dropping. And if he wants to meet Harold? Then we'll face it, when the time comes, Margaret replied. But you know what, Brian? The truth is always better than hiding things. And love, the love we give Noah, is stronger than all those difficult questions. When Noah turned 8, Brian hosted a small party at home. His classmates came. There was a big cake, games and laughter filling the living room, the kind of sound Brian once thought he would never hear again after Danny passed away. But when everyone had gone home, the house fell quiet. Only father and son remained at the table, looking at the pile of birthday presents still untouched, when Noah suddenly asked a question that froze Brian in place. Dad, does Harold know today is my birthday? Brian stopped. He pulled a chair closer and sat beside his son, speaking gently. You're thinking about him? Noah nodded, his eyes fixed on a brand-new toy car. I was just wondering, does he remember me? Or did he forget me already? Brian placed his hand on Noah's shoulder. He hasn't forgotten you, he said firmly. I can promise you that. Noah looked up, his blue eyes wide. How do you know? This was the moment Brian had been avoiding for months. He took a deep breath. Because Harold wrote a letter to me, asking about you. Noah froze. Really, Dad? Really? Brian gave a soft smile. And I wrote back. I told him you're happy. Noah stayed quiet for a moment, then whispered, Can I read his letter? Brian hesitated. Are you sure? That letter? It might make you sad. I want to know, Noah said, in the small but steady voice that only children who have known hurt can have. Brian stood up, went to his library, and opened the drawer where he had carefully kept the letter. When he handed it to Noah and sat beside him, the boy read every line intently, his lips trembling with each word. Then, slowly, tears rolled down his cheeks. He said he was sorry, Noah whispered. Yes, and he said he loves me. He did, Brian replied, his chest tightening. Noah lifted his tearful eyes. Can I meet him? Just once? The question felt like a blade slicing into Brian's deepest fear. He feared Noah might want Harold back, feared losing his place in his son's heart. But when he looked at the small face filled with compassion, no anger, no resentment, Brian understood this had nothing to do with him. This was Noah's journey, to find peace in the story of his own life. If that's what you want, Brian said, his voice unsteady, I'll make it happen. 2 weeks later, Brian called Riverside Recovery Center and asked to speak with Harold. Harold's voice came through the receiver, shaky, frightened, but steady in the way of someone who had fought hard for a long time to get back up. Noah wants to meet you, Brian said. A long, choking silence sat on the other end of the line. I don't deserve that, Harold finally breathed, his voice cracking into pieces. That might be true, Brian replied honestly. But Noah has the right to choose, and he's ready to look into the past. I don't know what to say, Harold stammered. How can I look my son in the eyes after what I've done? By telling the truth, Brian answered. By saying you're sorry. And if he's angry, you let him be angry. The only thing you are not allowed to do is run away again. On the other end, Harold sobbed softly, then whispered, I promise. They agreed to meet at Holy Cross Cemetery, where Eliza was buried. A neutral place, a place where all three, Brian, Harold, and Noah, could stand before the loss they all shared. A place that could be a beginning or an ending. But it was where Noah wanted to go. And for his son, Brian agreed to follow him to the very end of this story. That day came on a late November afternoon, cold, gloomy, carrying the same air as the day Harold abandoned Noah 8 years ago. Brian drove slowly into the cemetery, Noah sitting quietly in the passenger seat. The boy wore a thick coat, hands wrapped tightly around the stuffed bear Margaret had dug out from the storage room and washed until it was soft again. "Are you scared?" Brian asked, his voice gentle, as if afraid to make Noah more anxious. "A little," Noah admitted. "But I also want to see him. I want him to know I'm okay." Brian turned to look at his son, his heart tightening. "You are the kindest kid I've ever known." When the car came to a stop, they saw Harold waiting near the distant row of pine trees. He looked much older than before. Snow-white hair, a slight hunch. Every line on his face carved with exhaustion. But his eyes were brighter, clearer, like a man who had walked through hell and come back. Noah got out of the car, still holding tightly onto Brian's hand. Father and son walked together toward Harold. "Noah," Harold said, in a voice that was almost breaking. You've grown so much." "Hello, Harold," Noah replied, keeping the polite cautiousness of a child trying to be brave. "You can call me Dad," Harold said, then immediately corrected himself, his voice dropping. "Or Harold, whatever makes you comfortable." Noah thought for a moment. "I'll call you Harold. I already have a dad." He looked up at Brian. Harold nodded, tears glimmering. "You're right, and you have a wonderful father." They walked together to Eliza's headstone. Harold knelt, placing a fresh bouquet on the cold stone. "This is your mother," he said softly, his hands trembling. "She was the best person I ever knew. And you were what she wanted more than anything." "Dad Brian said she died so I could live," Noah whispered. "That's true," Harold nodded, his voice tightening. "And since that day, every single day, I've had to live with the decision I made, saving you, but losing her." Noah was silent for a long moment. "Do you regret it?" Harold looked directly into the boy's blue eyes, the same eyes Eliza had. "No," he said, his voice steady but filled with pain. "I never regret saving you, but I regret abandoning you." "Why did you do it?" Noah asked, his voice small but honest in the way only children can be. Harold let out a breath that sounded like he was releasing a boulder from his chest. "Because I thought you deserved a better life than I could give. Because every time I looked at you, I saw your mother, and everything I'd lost. Because I was too weak. Because I was afraid." Tears fell down Harold's gaunt cheeks. "But Noah, not a single day went by that I didn't love you. Not a single day I didn't think of you. And no apology could ever repay what I did." Noah looked at him for a very long time, longer than any 8-year-old should have to bear. Then slowly, he stepped forward and wrapped his small arms around Harold. "I forgive you," Noah whispered. Harold broke down, holding the child he had once believed he had lost forever. "Thank you," he sobbed. "Thank you." Brian stood a few steps away, silent tears sliding down his face. No jealousy, no fear. Only a deep, quiet warmth. Because he saw that Noah was strong enough to forgive, mature enough to love both of his fathers in 2 different ways. And that moment was the healing none of them had ever dared to dream of. 2 years after the meeting at the cemetery, Noah was now 10. The boy wasn't just healthy, he was shining in his own way, winning one math award after another. And Harold, he had been sober for 5 years, working full-time as a carpenter at a small workshop on the outskirts of town. He lived simply, patiently, quietly, trying his best every day. They did not live together. Harold also never asked to reclaim the role of father, but every month, on the exact date Noah was adopted, Harold sent a letter, telling stories about Eliza, about the past, about the things a father wishes he could have said long ago. And Noah wrote back. Short letters describing school, friends, the new math problems he was working on, sometimes scribbling a few numbers Harold couldn't make sense of, but still treasured like something precious. For Noah's 10th birthday, Harold came to visit, not at Brian's home, but at a nearby park. A supervised meeting, arranged carefully and thoughtfully by Brian. Harold brought a gift, a beautiful wooden box, entirely hand-carved. On the lid were numbers, formulas, and mathematical curves intertwining like a piece of art. "I made this for you," he said softly, his voice trembling almost to a whisper. Noah opened the box, his eyes lighting up as if fireworks burst inside them. Inside was not a toy or a book, but the letters Harold had written during his first 3 years in the recovery center. Letters he had never dared to send. Awkward apologies, shaky declarations of love, regrets written in tears. "You can read them when you're ready," Harold said, "or never. That is entirely up to you." "Thank you, Harold," Noah whispered, hugging the box to his chest, as if holding a piece of his past he had never fully known. They sat together on the park bench, silent, but a silence that was warm, peaceful. Brian sat not far away, giving the pair space while being close enough for Noah to turn around and find him if he needed. After a long while, Harold asked, Are you happy?" Noah nodded, giving an answer simple but complete. "Yes. I have Dad Brian, Mom Margaret. I have friends. I have math. I'm happy." Harold lowered his head, his voice tightening. "That is all I ever wished for." Noah tilted his head, as if weighing something important. "And I have you too," he said. "Not like I have Dad Brian, but I still have you, and that's good too." Harold's chest tightened. I don't deserve you," Noah replied with the honest sincerity only children possess. "Maybe not. But I still choose to love you, because that's what family is." In that moment, Harold understood what he had been searching for all these years. Redemption is not erasing the past or fixing everything that's broken. Redemption is living each day well enough that the future, at the very least, has a chance to heal. And sometimes, only a 10-year-old child is pure enough to offer that kind of grace to a man who had lost almost everything. The story of Harold and Noah reminds us that forgiveness does not mean forgetting. Forgiveness is the choice between love and resentment, and sometimes choosing love is the hardest thing of all. It also reminds us that a family does not come in just one form. There is the father who gave you life, and the father who raised you, healed you, and taught you how to stand tall. And sometimes, you are lucky enough to have both, each loving you in a different way. And perhaps the greatest lesson is this: even the worst decisions can open the door to the best things, if we are brave enough to face them, to learn from our mistakes, and to keep moving forward. If this story touched you even a little, please hit like, leave a comment, or share it with someone who needs to hear this. And I want to ask you, do you believe in redemption? Do you believe forgiveness can save both sides? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of love, loss, and hope. Stories that remind us it is never too late to change, and never too early to love.